What if I told you that your entire life could feel different without changing a single thing around you? Same deadlines, the same traffic, same difficult people, but suddenly you're calm. The pressure that used to rattle your heart, it now passes like distant thunder. The chaos that once tugged at your focus, it loses its grip. And every breath you take whispers the same quiet truth. I am unmoved. This shift isn't magic, not something you stumble into by chance. It's the result of conscious, powerful mental adjustments. 12 ancient yet timeless mindset shifts. 12 subtle pivots in perception that transform noise into clarity, that sharpen your attention like a blade and allow you to move through life with purpose, not panic. Stoics called this living in harmony with nature. But in practical terms, it means taking back control of the one space the world can't reach, your inner world. Because once your mind learns to remain still, no storm outside can shake you. In this video, we'll walk through each of these 12 mindset shifts. By one, each is a step toward reclaiming your peace, directing your focus, and choosing how you respond to life, no matter what it throws your way. And make no mistake, this isn't about suppressing your emotions. It's about leading them. It's about becoming the calm center in a chaotic world. Let's begin. 1. Your inner world shapes your outer response. It's easy to believe the chaos is out there. It's the rude coworker, the late flight. It's the partner who never seems to understand. Most people live reacting, convinced. They're victims of whatever the day delivers. But the Stoics knew better. What truly disturbs you isn't the event. It's your relationship to your interpretation, your perception, your inner dialogue. That's where the storm begins. And it's also where peace can be restored. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of its hand. This you have the power to revoke at any moment." That one line flips your entire reality. Because if the disturbance comes from your estimate, then so does your power to change it. The more clarity you build within, the less control the outside world holds over you. Think about it. How many days do we start already feeling under siege? Notifications, traffic, minor annoyances that feel strangely personal, as if the universe itself is testing our patience. But here's the truth. Nothing external can shake your peace without your silent permission. That permission is granted through unconscious thoughts, knee-jerk reactions, and the false belief that you must respond to everything. You don't. And the moment you realize that, you begin to reclaim the energy that was silently leaking from your life. Shaping your inner world doesn't mean you fake being okay. It means you feel everything fully, but choose to respond with wisdom instead of impulse. That's not denial, it's stoicism. So once you've recognized that your peace begins within, the next step is learning how to guard it, especially when emotions come knocking. When anger rises, Stoic doesn't shove it down or pretend it doesn't exist. He watches, he listens. He asks, what sparked this? Is it even worth responding to? Is this really about them, or is it about me? That simple habit, pausing, questioning over time, becomes a mental filter, an internal firewall. You begin to see it when someone else's negativity tries to slip into your atmosphere. You start noticing the bait before you bite. And instead of reacting, you pause, you breathe, you assess. That pause, that sacred space between stimulus and response, becomes your superpower. It's where your calm lives, where your clarity finally has the room to speak. And here's the beauty. When your mind is still, your presence changes. You stop adding fuel to the fire. You stop reflecting the chaos. You become the calm in the chaos. What used to drain you arguments Drama, distractions now pass through you like wind through open hands. They no longer stick, you're no longer tangled. You observe, you don't absorb. But let's be clear, stillness is not weakness. The person who masters their inner world isn't passive. They're precise, their power isn't loud, it's focused. While others waste energy reacting to every trigger, the Stoic saves that energy for what truly matters. He lives with intention, not in defense. So if you want to become calm, focused, unshakable, don't start by changing your job, your partner, or your zip code. Start by changing your inner posture. Rebuild the lens through which you see everything. Ask yourself, what belief is causing me pain right now? What interpretation is feeding my stress? What thought am I empowering that no longer serves me? When the answer comes, don't judge it. Just notice, just shift, just choose again. Because real victory isn't changing the world outside. It's becoming the kind of person who's no longer moved by it. Point 2. Emotion is a messenger, not a master. 1 of the most freeing mindset shifts you can ever make is to stop being ruled by your emotions and start learning from them instead. Most people live like leaves in a storm. Every gust of emotion, anger, sadness, fear, jealousy, blows them off course. Every wave is a command, and they obey without question. But the Stoic doesn't live like that. The Stoic listens to emotion, but doesn't bow to it. He treats emotion as information, not instruction. And that changes everything, because emotions aren't the enemy. They're signals. Anger might show where your boundaries were crossed. Sadness might reveal a loss that truly mattered. Jealousy might uncover an unmet need, or an old wound left unhealed. These feelings aren't to be ignored, but they're not to be blindly obeyed either. The modern world swings between two extremes. Either worship emotion or bury it. But Stoicism walks a third path, to observe without attachment, to feel without becoming. Picture this. You get a message on your phone saying your boundary was crossed. Would you immediately scream at the sender? Or would you read the message? Understand the context, then choose how to respond. That's what emotion is. A message, not a master. And when you treat it that way, you reclaim one of the greatest forces in life, agency. You no longer react on autopilot. You respond by choice. So once you learn to treat emotion as a message, not a master, the next lesson is this. The power lies in how you pause, not how you react. Seneca once said, the greatest remedy for anger is delaying it denial. That pause, just a moment of delay, is everything. Because that pause is where transformation begins. It's where you take a step back, breathe, reflect, and then choose. You may not always get to choose what you feel, but you always choose what you do next. And right there, and in that space between emotion and action, lies your greatest freedom. But let's get something clear. Emotional intelligence isn't about becoming cold or robotic. It's not about silencing your humanity. It's about choosing to lead your feelings instead of being led by them. It means you stay kind. Not because you've erased your pain, because you've refused to pass it on. It means you allow yourself to cry, but not to collapse. To feel anger knocking at the door, but not let it move in and take over your home, because emotions, they are honored guests, not kings. And the more you practice this, the more the people around you begin to notice something. You don't flinch under pressure. You don't snap when provoked. You don't crumble under judgment. There's a calm, steady presence in you, quiet gravity that earns trust not by your words, but by how grounded you remain, especially when things get hard. Now think about your own life for a second. How many times have you said something in anger, only to wish you could take it back? How many times have you made a decision in fear, only to live with the consequences for years? Every time you react blindly to emotion, you hand over your power. But the moment you pause, reflect, ask, what is this emotion here to show me? That's the moment evolution begins. And here's the thing. Real growth isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with a megaphone. It reveals itself in how you carry yourself, what you choose to say, and in all the things you no longer feel the need to react to. Your silence becomes wisdom. Your restraint becomes confidence. And your self-control becomes peace. So, next time emotion surges, don't suppress it. Don't obey it. Just pause. Just listen and ask, what are you here to teach me? Then respond with the quiet, steady power of someone who has learned to master their inner world. 3. Discomfort is where transformation begins. Most people, they spend their whole lives running from discomfort. We avoid the awkward conversation, the early morning alarm, the empty silence after heartbreak, the sting of honest self-reflection instead. We scroll, we binge, we numb, because discomfort feels like danger. But what if discomfort wasn't the enemy? What if it was the doorway to your next evolution? This right here is where Stoic thinking flips everything. To the Stoic, discomfort isn't a warning to flee. It's a sign. Pay attention. It means you're being invited to grow. No strength is ever built in comfort. No deep clarity ever arrives in distraction. Look at any real transformation. It's physical, emotional, spiritual, and at the root you'll always find someone who was willing to stay present. Even when it was hard, the weightlifter grows because the weight is heavy. The philosopher finds truth not in what's easy, but in what's challenging. And the person who truly transforms, they're not asking, how can I avoid this pain? They're asking, what is this pain asking me to become? And yet, look at the world we live in. We are conditioned to chase ease, instant food, pleasure, instant results. We're taught so in a world that trains us to chase comfort. Choosing discomfort through discipline becomes a powerful act of self-respect. That's what makes discipline sacred. It restores the link between what you intend and what you do, between your words and your reality, between who you say you are and how you actually live. Seneca once wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And what is discipline if not a chosen adversity? Chance to prove yourself to yourself? To live deliberately, not reactively? In a world obsessed with shortcuts and ease, discipline becomes a quiet rebellion. Declares, I won't be ruled by impulse, building something even if no one else sees it yet. But don't confuse discipline with perfection. You will slip, you will fall. The Stoic doesn't aim to never stumble. He simply aims to rise faster, to return sooner, to stay loyal to the path even when it gets messy. Discipline is not about rigidity, it's about rhythm. Return to your higher self again and again, through small, intentional acts. It's not about having your life all figured out every day. It's about not abandoning yourself on the days you don't. Think of the people you admire. Is it their talent that sets them apart? Or is it their character? What sets them apart isn't motivation. Motivation fades. It's not inspiration that comes and goes. It's discipline. Those daily, often invisible choices, the ones no one sees, that quietly compound into something powerful. That's why the Stoic ties discipline to virtue, not because it looks impressive, but because it builds strength from the inside out. So the next time you're tempted to skip the thing you know matters, ask yourself, what am I really choosing? Here's or respect? The short-term comfort of avoidance, or the long term. Power of alignment. One will make you feel good for a moment. The other builds a version of yourself you can trust for life, because discipline isn't restriction. It's freedom. The freedom to move through life with integrity, knowing that your actions mirror your values. It's the most quiet, powerful form of self-love. And when you practice it daily, it becomes more than a habit. It becomes a way of being. The way of the unshakable. 5. Your identity is shaped by what you repeat. Most people think identity is something you find like treasure buried deep within, just waiting to be uncovered. But that's a myth. Identity isn't found, it's forged. Not in grand one-time gestures, but in the thousands of small, repeated choices you make every single day. What you do consistently becomes who you are. And that's both the burden and the beauty. You don't wake up one day with self-respect.com or clarity. You build it quietly over time. You're right, because you want to become a writer. You train because you want to become strong. You meditate. Not because you've mastered peace, but because you're becoming someone who can stay calm in the storm. Each act is not just a task. It's a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. And over time, those votes add up. They form your identity, but the same principle applies in reverse. Every time you say yes to distraction, you're not just wasting time, you're strengthening a version of yourself that avoids commitment. Every time you break a promise to yourself, even silently, you whisper to your mind, "I can't be trusted." And your mind listens. It remembers. Your repeated actions become the blueprint of your character, whether or not you're paying attention. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You become what you give your attention to." He wasn't talking about a moment of focus. He meant the direction of your energy over time. If you constantly practice envy, comparison, or avoidance, you can't be surprised when your sense of self begins to fracture. But if you practice patience, clarity, strength, and presence, even in small doses, those traits become your default. Think of it like water dripping on stone, each drop small on its own, but over time, reshaping something solid. So if your identity is shaped by what you repeat, then your real power lies not in what you promise to do someday, but in what you actually do today. Even the smallest habit done over and over can shape you. A single drop of water seems meaningless, but over time, it carves valleys. Your habits do the same. That's why the Stoic doesn't obsess over quick results. He focuses on rhythm, on the sacredness of the daily. Because he knows that showing up today, even when it's hard, even when no one sees it, it's how he becomes the kind of person he'll respect tomorrow. There's deep power in this shift, because it breaks the illusion that change is out of your hands. You don't need to wait for motivation. You don't need to wait for clarity. You just need to choose the next right action and do it again and again. Again, you don't become focused by accident. You don't become calm just by reading about it. You earn it through quiet, disciplined repetition. When no one's watching, and when it gets boring, that's when it really starts to work. True transformation rarely feels dramatic. It feels steady, mundane, repetitive. And that's why most people never reach it, because they confuse repetition with stagnation, when in truth, repetition is the only path to mastery. So ask yourself, what are you repeating every day? Not what you hope to be, but what you're actually doing. Because that's right, there's what you're becoming, not your goals, not your thoughts. Your habits, you are, at your core, a mirror of your repetitions. And if that feels sober and good, it should, because it means the power isn't waiting for you tomorrow. It's already in your hands, right now, in this moment.
Ow.
With this very action. And when you commit to showing up with purpose again and again, You don't just change what you do, you change who you are. 6. Let go of the illusion of control. Now here's one of the hardest truths to accept, but one of the most freeing once you finally do. Most of life is outside your control. The weather, the market, other people's thoughts, your friend's behavior, even the outcome of a conversation. Sometimes, even your own body doesn't obey your will. And yet we spend so much of our energy clinging to this illusion that if we try hard enough, plan deeply enough, or worry intensely enough, we can force things to go our way. But the Stoic doesn't waste strength fighting fantasies. He lives in alignment with nature, not opposition to it. He understands that reality, no matter how unfair or unpredictable, is not an enemy to conquer. It's a force to understand, to adapt to. Now let's be clear. Acceptance does not mean passivity, does not mean giving up or no longer caring. It means you stop breaking yourself against walls that will never move, Epictetus once said. Some things are up to us and some are not. That single line carries enough wisdom to change your entire life, because once you clearly separate what's yours from what isn't, your choices from their opinions, your effort from the outcome, you reclaim a massive amount of energy you never realized you were wasting. You start to see clearly where your real power lies. Not in managing the storm, but in steering your ship through it. Now think about this. How much stress, anxiety, and exhaustion comes from trying to control the uncontrollable? You'd send a message, then spiral, waiting for the reply. You prep for a meeting, then ruminate on how they'll judge you. You take action, then panic over whether it will work. When you finally release the illusion of control, you stop clinging to outcomes and start anchoring yourself in how you respond. But here's the trap so many fall into. You make a decision, then torture yourself, wondering what others might think. You act with good intent, then spiral into doubt over how you were perceived. None of that is control, self-inflicted suffering. And the tighter you try to grip life with clenched fists, the more it slips through your fingers. The Stoic chooses a different path. He learns to open his hands, not in surrender, but in wisdom. He takes full ownership of what is his intentions, his actions, his values, and he lets go of the rest, not because he's weak, but because he sees clearly. The paradox is this. When you stop trying to control what isn't yours, you actually gain more control over what is. Your thoughts, your choices, your character. Letting go isn't giving up. It's redirecting your full attention to what's actually within reach. You can't control how others love you, but you can control how you love. You can't guarantee success, but you can control your effort. You can't erase pain, but you can choose how you carry it. That shift from obsessing over outcomes to mastering your inner response, that is where true freedom begins. Life will always throw curveballs. That doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean you're cursed. It simply means you're human, and your job is not to predict the future, but to meet it with strength. A Stoic walks into each day, like a warrior stepping into unknown terrain. He doesn't expect the path to be smooth. He simply prepares to meet whatever comes with calm, with courage, with clarity. So next time you feel overwhelmed, anxious, or frozen by uncertainty, pause and ask, am I focusing on what's mine or what isn't? Am I wasting energy on what I wish would happen, or directing my power toward what I can control right now? That question asked consistently becomes your compass. Because peace doesn't come from controlling everything. It comes from realizing you don't have to, and that isn't weakness. That's wisdom, the kind of wisdom that doesn't panic. When life changes direction, because you know, your anchor is never in outcomes, it's in your response. 7. What you tolerate, you invite. Every time you stay silent while your peace is violated. Every time you laugh off a disrespectful comment just to keep the peace. Every time you compromise your values just to avoid conflict. You're not just enduring, you're training the world how to treat you. Tolerance isn't neutral. It isn't passive. It's a signal. And that signal tells others, and more importantly yourself, one of two things. This is okay. Or, this stops here. Too many confuse tolerance with strength. They think that putting up with what hurts them is noble. That staying quiet when mistreated is a sign of maturity. But Stoicism was never about swallowing pain in silence. It's about knowing what nourishes your soul and having the discipline to protect it. Because what you allow, even once you start to normalize, and what you normalize, you start to become. Seneca said, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." Meaning you hesitate to set boundaries because you're afraid. Afraid of losing love, afraid of losing approval, afraid of losing comfort. But in doing so, you behave as if you have forever to correct the erosion of your values. You don't. Every time you allow something that dishonors your inner peace, you invite it deeper into your life. And if repeated long enough, it becomes the very atmosphere you breathe. So while what you tolerate from others shapes your environment, what you tolerate from yourself that shapes you. It's not just about toxic people. It's about the quiet, subtle agreements you make with yourself. Every single day you tolerate your own excuses. You tolerate procrastination. You tolerate the voice in your head that says, "I'll start tomorrow. It's not that bad. At least I'm not as bad as them." And those small tolerances, repeated day after day, become habits. And habits and challenge start to shape your identity. That's why the Stoic doesn't wait for a breaking point. He adjusts early, firmly, quietly. He doesn't yell. He doesn't blame. He doesn't make a show of setting boundaries. He becomes the boundary. There's a quiet dignity in that kind of inner firmness, a power that doesn't come from domination, but from self-respect. And when others see it, truly see it, they either rise to meet your standard, or they fall away from your life. Both outcomes serve your growth. So ask yourself honestly, what have you been tolerating lately? Is it a draining relationship, a disrespectful tone, unhealthy routine that slowly chips away at your energy and focus? Be honest, not to shame yourself, but to awaken. Awareness is the first act of power. The second, refusal. Because tolerance is cumulative. It builds. It echoes. It teaches your subconscious what you believe you deserve. And when you finally decide to stop tolerating what disrespects your peace, not with rage, it's not with drama, but with calm, unwavering clarity, you reclaim more than your boundaries. You reclaim your self-worth. The Stoic path isn't paved with loud declarations, shaped by quiet decisions made in the face of subtle disrespects. The decision to speak truthfully, to say no without guilt, to walk away from chaos, without feeling the need to explain, these aren't acts of rebellion. They're acts of remembrance, reminding yourself of who you are, and refusing to let that memory fade under the slow weight of toleration. So the next time life asks you to lower your standards, just to keep something or someone, ask yourself, what am I really keeping? And at what cost? 8. Speak less, mean more. In a world obsessed with volume, the Stoic speaks with weight, not loudness, not frequency, but clarity. In today's noise-driven culture, where everyone seems to be performing, in conversations, in meetings, online, silence has become more than golden. It's powerful. It's rare, and paradoxically, the quieter you become, the more people lean in to hear what truly matters. Speaking less doesn't mean disappearing. It's not avoidance. is intentional restraint, a conscious decision to choose substance over noise. The untrained mind speaks to fill silence. The trained mind speaks to honor it. The Stoic doesn't seek attention. He seeks precision. His words are like tools, not thrown around wildly, but placed carefully. Not used to impress, but to express truth with discipline. Think back to the times you've spoken impulsively and regretted it, the angry reply, the defensive explanation, unnecessary comment. Just to prove a point, in each case, speaking more didn't solve the problem. It amplified it. Words once spoken can't be pulled back. They're like arrows loosed from a bow, they will land somewhere, intended or not. That's why the Stoics practiced what we might call verbal minimalism. They measured their words like a jeweler handles diamonds, with care, with precision, with reverence, because they understood language. When used thoughtfully, is a vessel for wisdom, but when used carelessly, it becomes a weapon, often turned against your own peace. Marcus. So when you speak less, but mean more, your words begin to carry weight instead of just volume. And as Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. That wisdom applies to speech too. The more we feel the need to explain ourselves, to be understood by everyone, to fill every silence with words, the more control we unknowingly surrender, because in those moments, we're no longer speaking to serve truth, we're speaking to soothe insecurity. But when you pause, when you hold back for just one breath longer, something changes. Your words shift from being reactive to being rooted. You start noticing what doesn't need to be said. You develop a kind of inner filter, not sharpened by fear, but by respect for your own thoughts. You begin to see that silence isn't an empty void to fear. It's a canvas, a space where clarity can form before chaos gets a chance to speak. And this restraint, this conscious stillness, builds something rare: presence. People feel your words. Before you even speak, they sense your calm, your clarity, your discernment. And that calm, that steady quietness, becomes your signature. The world starts to trust you, not because you speak the most, but because they know you've thought it through, and that trust, it's earned. Never claimed, so speak less. Mean more. Let your words be few, but your presence strong. And before you speak, ask, does this need to be said? Will it add peace or tension? Truth or noise? Will I still stand by this an hour from now, a year from now? Because one carefully placed word can build a bridge, and one careless sentence can burn it down. Don't waste your voice chasing attention. Use it with precision. 9. Comparison poisons the mind. It always starts quietly, almost invisibly. You scroll past a success story, a smiling face, a highlight reel. Someone bought a house. Someone launched a business. Someone dropped 20 pounds. You barely notice it at first, but something inside you tightens. You start measuring your own timeline against theirs. You were fine 5 minutes ago. Now you feel behind. That's how comparison works. Not as a conscious decision, but as a silent toxin. The Stoic understands this deeply because comparison isn't just unfair, it's delusional. You're comparing the messy, complicated chaos of your own life to the edited highlight reel of someone else's. That's not a match. It's a mirage. Yet we fall for it anyway. Why? It's because deep down we're looking for reassurance, a compass that tells us we're okay, that we're making progress, that we matter. But when that compass starts pointing outward, we lose all direction inward. You begin shaping your goals, not by your truth, but by their approval. You start walking their path, hoping it'll lead to your destination. But it never does, The Stoic path is different. It asks you to step out of the race, to put down the scoreboard, because to the Stoic, progress isn't a performance, it's a practice. It's not about where they are, it's about who you are and who you. Where yesterday the only valid comparison is this: am I more centered than I was last week? Are the choices I'm making today ones my past self would be proud of? Seneca once said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." But in today's world, we idolize the easy path, the quick wins, the effortless success, and we forget their path is not your test. Their speed is not your value, your struggle. It may be your sharpening, and if you abandon it to chase their image, you lose the very lesson meant to forge you. Comparison also blinds you to your own blessings. When you're fixated on someone else's win, you forget your own growth. You forget that the problems you have today are the things you once prayed for. You forget that your current peace, your current discipline, your current mindset, they're all victories, hard-won and deeply personal. There's another danger. So when comparison blinds you to your own blessings, it doesn't just rob you of peace, it quietly breeds resentment. It distorts how you view others. Instead of seeing their wins with respect, you begin to see them as threats, and that bitterness doesn't touch them. It drains you. It turns your energy outward into judgment. Envy, distraction instead of inward, into growth. But here's the truth. No one can live your life better than you. No one else carries your exact blend of pain and passion. Your particular scars and strengths, your mistakes, and your dreams. Your journey is unrepeatable, which means your timing is sacred. Your path isn't late. It's not broken. It's tailored. Every detour, every delay, every heartbreak. It's not random. It's shaping something in you that can't be mass-produced. So the next time comparison creeps in, pause, return to yourself. Return to your journal, to your breath, to your vision, to your values. Return to the work,
the silence,
the sacred rhythm of becoming. And remember this: no one who's truly focused on their own path has time to envy someone else's. The Stoic doesn't compete, he cultivates. He doesn't crave what others have, he honors what he's building. One quiet, disciplined choice at a time. 10. Stillness is strength. In a world that equates constant motion with meaning, and busyness with value, stillness has become an almost rebellious act. We're told to move, to chase, to respond, to stay updated, stay connected, stay loud. Every second is filled with noise, alerts, notifications, opinions the modern mind has become addicted to, motion. But the Stoic knew true power doesn't always come from doing more. Sometimes it comes from doing nothing at all. Stillness is not laziness. It's not apathy. It's not withdrawal. Stillness is presence without panic. It's observation without immediate reaction. It's the ability to sit with your thoughts, your emotions, your impulses, and not be ruled by them. In a reactive world, the one who can remain still mentally, emotionally, spiritually becomes a mountain. In a world of leaves blown by every wind, picture a storm. Trees bend, leaves scatter, chaos swirls. But in the center of the hurricane, there is a place. It's called the eye. Perfectly calm, untouched. That's what stillness is. Not the absence of pressure, but the refusal to be pulled by it. In this kind of inner stillness, it takes real strength, because it's far easier to react than reflect. It's easier to speak than to pause. It's easier to scroll than to sit in silence. The untrained mind runs from discomfort, from uncertainty, from the emptiness. But the trained mind, it walks. And often, it sits. The Stoics practice stillness as a discipline. Marcus Aurelius, even as an emperor, retreated inward. Epictetus. Though born into slavery, found freedom in choosing his response, Seneca wrote his deepest wisdom not in success, but in still reflective solitude. To them, stillness wasn't a seat. It was a sword. And why does this matter now more than ever? Because today, we are overstimulated, but under-reflective. We jump from reaction to reaction, news, messages, headlines, opinions, until our minds become echo chambers for everyone else's voice. And in all that noise, we lose the one voice that actually matters, our own. Stillness allows that voice to return. It's in stillness that you hear the quiet truths that the decision you're rushing into doesn't align with your values, that the person you keep pleasing is quietly harming your peace, that the path you're walking may not be leading you home. So if stillness helps you hear your own voice again, then what you discover in that quiet is who you really are. Stillness isn't the place you escape to. It's the place where your true self lives. The self behind the masks. The self before the noise. And the strength that grows there. It's unshakable. Because when you're no longer ruled by urgency, you're no longer vulnerable to manipulation. You can't be baited into drama. You can't be pressured into rushed decisions. You become the kind of person who pauses before acting, listens before speaking, reflects before judging. And in that pause, that breath, that silence lies your power. Because in stillness, you don't just observe the world. You observe yourself, your habits, your desires, your ego. And once you see clearly, you can act from wisdom instead of impulse. That's where strength is born, not in endless movement, but in mastery. So make time for stillness daily. Even if the world around you is chaotic, especially then. Wake up 10 minutes earlier just to sit in silence. Take a walk without your phone. Breathe. Listen, not to reply, not to fix. Just to be. Because stillness isn't the absence of action. It's the source of wise action. It doesn't slow you down. It centers you, sharpens you, so that when you do move, you move with intention. Let the world rush. Let it demand. Let it spin. You remain grounded, not because you don't feel, but because you don't flinch. 11. Forgiveness is liberation. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood ideas. Some think it means forgetting. Others think it's weakness. Many confuse it with permission, as if by letting go, or somehow validating what was done to us. But the Stoic sees it differently. To the wise mind, forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you, your clarity, your peace, your freedom. Because here's the truth. Resentment is heavy. It doesn't stay in one corner of your life. It bleeds into everything. You wake up thinking about what happened. You replay it while working, while eating, even while smiling. The betrayal becomes a part of your identity. And with time, it hardens into bitterness, into cynicism, into mistrust. But worst of all, it steals your present. The Stoics would ask, if someone wronged you once, why let them wrong you every day through memory? Epictetus reminds us, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. When you keep replaying what happened, you're not just remembering, you're reliving. You're dragging an old wound into every moment and expecting it to heal, even as you keep picking at it. Forgiveness isn't a gift for the offender. It's an act of self-respect. You're choosing not to let someone else's immaturity poison your clarity. You're choosing not to let their failure define your future. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean you trust them again. It simply means you've chosen to stop bleeding from a wound that the person who caused it no longer even remembers. And here, this is where the Stoic insight goes deeper. They teach us to examine our own role, not to blame ourselves, but to understand. Did we stay too long in a situation that showed early signs of harm? Did we ignore our intuition out of hope or fear or pride? Did we project our ideals onto someone who never intended to live up to them? Forgiveness lets you ask these questions, not with shame, but with wisdom. Seneca once wrote, "He who suffers before." So if forgiveness is liberation, then holding on to anger is its opposite. A self-imposed prison you keep locking from the inside, as Seneca wrote. He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary. That's exactly what clinging to anger does. It extends the pain long after the wound. The moment has passed, but you remain imprisoned in it. You tell yourself the bars are justice, but in truth, they're built by you. When you finally choose to forgive, reclaim your emotional energy, all the force once consumed by rage is now free for growth. All the space once filled with pain is now cleared for peace. Forgiveness doesn't just open the door to healing, it opens the door to perspective. You begin to see that people can only act from the level of awareness they currently have. That doesn't excuse them, but it explains them. And sometimes, understanding is far more powerful than revenge. It's not easy, especially when the wound is deep. Especially when the person who hurt you was close. But the depth of your pain only reflects the depth of your heart, and that heart deserves freedom. You deserve to walk lightly, not dragging the weight of what can never be undone. So forgive. Not quickly, not blindly, but bravely. Forgive. Because your soul is too valuable to be chained to resentment. Forgive. Because the future is calling and it has no room for passengers still tied to the past. Forgive not because they changed, but because you are changing. That is liberation. That is Stoic strength. 12. Confidence comes from congruence. Confidence isn't what you show to the world, it's what you whisper to yourself. In the dark, it's not built by applause, admiration, or titles. It's built quietly, day by day, through the alignment between what you believe and how you live. That's what the Stoics understood better than most. That true self-respect is not inherited, not gifted. It's not found. It's earned. Earned through consistency, through integrity, through the quiet promise you keep to yourself when no one else is watching. Yet many chase confidence like it's a mask to wear. They decorate it with borrowed quotes, curated images, loud declarations, but inside, they know. They're not living what they preach. They say they value discipline, yet argue with the snooze button every morning. They say they value peace, but answer every provocation with rage. That disconnect, that lack of alignment, is where insecurity breeds. Not because they're flawed, but because their life lacks congruence. Congruence means harmony between your thoughts and your words and your actions, who you say you are and who you actually show up. As in, when those things align, confidence doesn't need to be forced. It flows like a tree standing tall, not because it tries to impress, but because its roots are deep and its trunk is straight. Think of someone you truly admire, not for their popularity, but for their presence. What makes them magnetic? It's not noise. It's quiet certainty, the sense that they are the same person in public and in private, that they don't need to explain their values because they live them. That's the kind of person others respect. But more importantly, that's the kind of person who respects themselves. The Stoics didn't chase image, they chased truth. They knew reputation is what others think of you. Character is what you know about yourself. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet wrote in his journal, As a humble student of virtue, Epictetus was born a slave, but carried himself like a king, because he governed his mind with clarity, their confidence. It didn't come from approval, it came from self-congruence. So how do you build this kind of confidence? You start small, you make one promise to yourself, and you keep it. You speak kindly to yourself. Stop tolerating self-sabotage disguised as humor. You stop chasing goals that look good on the outside, but don't align with your inner truth. You let go of people who make you shrink, not out of bitterness, because your spirit needs space to breathe. So when you begin living in alignment, your confidence no longer needs to shout. It simply shows through quiet consistency. Waking up when you said you would, finishing what you started, honoring your word, walking away from what no longer reflects who you're becoming. Each small act of congruence adds weight to your presence. Not in a loud way, but in a grounded, undeniable way. You no longer need to scream, "I'm enough," because your actions already prove it. This is the path of the calm, focused, unshakable mind. Not a pursuit of perfection, but a commitment to practice. Not driven by ego, but shaped by embodiment. Because in the end, the person who truly believes in themselves doesn't need to convince anyone else. They simply live in a way that makes doubt unnecessary. That right there is the unspoken power of congruence. And there comes a moment in every journey when the chase for more must give way to the practice of less noise, less reaction, less pretending. Because deep down, what we truly crave isn't to be louder in the world, but quieter within ourselves. That's what Stoicism offers. Not a rule book, but a mirror. Not a doctrine, but a discipline of presence. And if there's one thing these 12 mindset shifts have taught us, it's this. The real transformation doesn't happen in public. It happens in the quiet moments. The private choices, when no one is watching, when you pause instead of react, when you speak with intention, not impulse, when you walk away, not to prove a point, but to protect your peace. Being calm in a chaotic world isn't apathy. Strength, a quiet rebellion against the culture of urgency and outrage. Being focused in a distracted world isn't luck, it's a practice. A daily refusal to hand your attention to what doesn't serve your soul. These shifts, they don't happen overnight. They're not quick fixes. They are daily silent revolutions. A slow turning inward, a deepening, remembering. So if even one of these truths resonated with you, hold on to it. Not as a fleeting inspiration. As a standard, let your life become the proof that wisdom still matters. Inner work still wins. That peace is not passive, it's earned. And as always, if this message moved you, share it with someone who needs stillness more than advice. Subscribe to Stoic Havenway, not just to hear more, but to become more. And remember, you don't need to control the world to be unshakable. You just need to master your response to it. Until next time, stay anchored and stay free.